Why Warcraft isn't epic anymore. I've talked about a little bit about this, world of softcraft, world of friendcraft as I call it. Where's the heroism? Where are the epic moments? Where is the blood, the sword and shields, the Lok'taro Guard, the blood and thunder? Let's see what Bellular has to say about this.
Welcome back. I was going to open today's video with Warcraft has forgotten what it's really about, but then I realized that isn't actually true. It knows what it's about, it just spends too long trying to be clever about it instead of embracing it wholeheartedly. So, let me explain. In the Forsaken Heritage quest, Lillian Voss is an absolute badass. Every word out of her mouth is dripping with determination for the Forsaken or with violence against the enemy Scarlets. In the last stage of the quest, you push into a Scarlet stronghold full of elites. You would have no chance by yourself, but you're not alone. Lillian was actually raised as a lethal weapon by the Scarlets until she met her unfortunate end. Her first questline in Cataclysm follows her being raised and struggling with her new identity until her father orders her execution at the hands of her childhood friend, a Scarlet lieutenant. And so, in self-defense and rage, she teleports out of the cage onto his shoulders and kills him there and then with one strike. As I said, you have no chance against these Scarlets, but you've got one of the Forsaken's greatest heroes with you. So while you are chipping away at their health, Lillian, nothing personals them like she did before, one-shotting them with her signature move. And it's not a big deal either. Every single pull, she takes a few of them out brutally and efficiently, using the blades that she used to help put an end to Whitemane, the last Scarlet leader, and Gandling, a major Scourge necromancer. You're given Heritage armor, celebrated for helping her out in the quest, but she was the big main character. She didn't pull any punches. It was badass. Ultimately, the Scarlets are the enemy of her people. There is no moral quandary to resolve. There's just the bad guy to slay. And for Forsaken players, this is their power fantasy. It's exciting, it's fun, and it can be contrasted with the Night Elf Heritage quest. And today's sponsor. It's Raycon's 6th anniversary right now, and if you hit up buyraycon.com...
He's going to contrast it with the Night Elf questline. Look, the Night Elves, I feel like, have gone the softest of all the races, to be honest. And one of the things, if you played the old Warcrafts, you would have seen that they were actually one of the toughest and most brutal races in the game. So the softness of them, it hurts to see.
And super solid all day, can shake my head about, they do not fall out. And the battery life is just sick. They offer 8 hours of continuous playtime with a 32-hour battery life overall, which is so much more than what I'm used to. And it means they get through my workday easy. So with all that, it's no wonder why these bad boys have got over 78,000 5-star reviews. And in terms of my personal use, as I said, I do use these a hell of a lot in the office, and also going out and listening to podcasts, which is something that I do now to try and be more healthy. So I like how they, I guess, support that lifestyle, and going outside, the weather resistance is real nice too. They've got the features that I want, and even before the discount, they're often half the price or less than comparable buds from other brands.
Give us the code,
all while having a premium soft touch finish, which is water and sweat resistant, a very important thing to handle the delightful Northern Irish weather. They come with a wireless charging case, the cable, and 5 pairs of silicone ear tips, so you can get a perfect fit for the best possible passive noise isolation. And you can hit up buyraycon.com/bellular to get 20 to 40% off site-wide. Thanks to Raycon for supporting the show. Let's go. Oh, the Night Elf quest. Maiev hasn't had as much screen time as Lillian in World of Warcraft, but Maiev is a legendary character. The warden who hunted her quarry for 10,000 years across space, going to a dying planet to finish the job. The huntress who continued to hunt, even murdering supposed allies she saw dangerous because they were mages, like Illidan had been back in the day. So this quest should feel special on paper. It's a small party of night elves taking out demons, their ancient enemy, in the Barrow Dens, right?
Right.
But rather than be celebratory, it's introspective and reflective. At least that's what it tries to be. It has a sick action scene, but the rest of it is about how...
The rest of it's probably about, feelings and, looking into yourself and figuring out why you're feeling the way you're feeling. No. You think Varian was thinking about what he was feeling when he jumped off a fucking exploding ship and buried his blade into a giant grunt? No. No. He wasn't thinking about anything. In fact, he probably knew he was going to die, and he did it anyways. Because it was an epic moment, because it was a badass moment, because he's a hero. That's what heroes do. And that's the things that don't exist anymore. See, now Varian, before he jumped off the ship, would have had an introspective moment where he thought about his son and the times that they had together, and he would have just said, no, I need to stay alive. I'm going to stay on this ship. We're going to have some cheese and crackers together, me and my working friend over here, and we're going to sail off into the sunset. That's how the new WoW would have handled it.
Maiev is convinced by a young new character that she and
he
the
was
Night
thinking about
Elves
his
do
son
in
as
fact
motive
need to change.
to save him.
One of these felt good,
Not about how
right?
he's
These
gonna,
quests. The other one didn't, which combined
run around and hold hands with him.
with what's happening in Dragonflight so far, led us to a realization. Warcraft feels best when it's celebrating its heroes, and it hasn't been doing much of that lately. In fact, it's been doing the opposite. It's been tearing them down, homogenizing them, and changing them. On a hunt for ideas of what heroic moments stuck with people and got them excited in the game, we asked on Twitter, or X, or whatever, and we saw some fascinating results. Tons of people mentioned Varian's sacrifice specifically.
Yeah, this moment is totally one of the most epic moments that we've had in modern WoW. Varian sacrificing himself and going all out and then literally fucking exploding in the end. That was crazy, man. That's the kind of shit. We'd never get this in Dragonflight. No dragon's going to do anything like this. They're all too busy, singing Kumbaya.
Being defiant at the end in the
Talking
face
about
of
how they're so
Gul'dan's
sad.
taunts. He died for the Alliance. That's their king. Great cinematic. Others called out the final Frostfire Ridge cinematic.
Also
with
badass.
Gannar's sacrifice to buy Drekthar
A fucking blind shaman wrecking an entire mountain. It's such a cool moment, man. Stuff don't exist anymore. By the way, WoD, say what you want about it. That was a badass hardcore storytelling expansion until they ran out of content. But before that, it was good.
Time to stop the invasion of the Frostwolf home. In fact, most people brought up different forms of sacrifice, mostly ones to buy time. And of course, that's always been this franchise's bread and butter.
And you see why I don't like time travel or multiversal shit and that kind of stuff is because these moments, right, Varian and everything else, they're epic because you know that you're witnessing a character who's been built up over time, a character that you have attachments to, end. Right? There should be a finality to that end. When you do multiversal shit and all everything, you just think, oh yeah, he can come back. Another variant can come back. Maybe we'll get another, or go back in time and stop him from doing this because, we got to pussify the game. I don't know. But what I do know is that without time travel, without multiversal stuff, these moments have more meaning. They're more badass.
Has been this franchise's bread and butter. For a lot of us older players, Warcraft 3 was the introduction to the franchise. After 2 campaigns of death and destruction, watching Arthas fall, the Orc campaign ended in something unabashedly heroic. It ended with the defining moment in the timeline for all orcs, the death
Loki's a good
of Hellscream. Grom, who had just relapsed into drinking demon blood again, made one final determination at Thrall's side and slew Manaroth. His dying words are that he is finally free. Thrall adds that he freed them all. Not too long after, the Night Elves then make a similar sacrifice, giving up their immortality to kill Archimonde and save the world. Illidan's story is another of sacrifice, first giving his eyes, the golden eyes that meant he was destined for greatness, and then being imprisoned by his own people for treachery, even if his betrayal is actually what saved them in the end. But it's not actually about sacrifice, even if it seems that way. It's not necessarily about the heroes. It's about one thing overall: sheer determination. Other replies brought up Illidan's stand against Xera. Now that line
I am my scars
is horrifically cringe in isolation, but in context, with the weight of what Illidan has done, the 10,000 years of imprisonment was actually kind of perfect. I've seen the light.
It's very accurate that the statement about this timeline being the Titan one, right? And Titan, like the one true Titan timeline. And the old gods have always said they see many truths, right? So they can see all the timelines, if you want to talk about it in terms of Loki, right? Where the Titans, like you said, the one true timeline is theirs. They see one truth and they try to push everything to that one truth. Whereas you see the old gods seeing all the truths. And they want to cause chaos. Yeah, thank you for the 20 bits. Retros, thank you.
I've watched amazing movies like RRR, and I get it. Go hard, all the time, don't worry about being cringe. And of course for Illidan, that happened before he then willingly locked himself in a cage with his mortal enemy, seemingly for the rest of time. Some brought up Darion and Tyrion. The Death Knight Darion Mograine fought off Arthas's absolute control in 1 minute of raw strength to throw the Ashbringer, his father's fabled sword, to Tyrion, which then turned the tide against the Scourge, ultimately leading to our victory. That wasn't a noble sacrifice, it was just a moment of pure heroism. Tyrion then was made a legend by his speech atop Icecrown and his destruction of Frostmourne. But that was the end of a long journey that we all got to witness in-game. He led the Ashen Verdict alongside Darion, setting aside differences to push into Icecrown and, step by step, dismantle and defeat the Scourge. Then there's the rest of Warlords of Draenor. I mean, Murad's sacrifice to save Yrel getting her wings for some revenge, Velen cleansing the Darkstar. WoD is absolutely full of...
Look, WoD had a lot of hardcore heroic moments. WoD did, and it started even before WoD came out with all those, like... those pre-comic book things that they released. I mean, talking about like the Gul'dan's story and Blackhand's story and everything. They were all badass, man. Hardcore stories, big sweaty orcs, going to war, the Iron Horde, like all that stuff was really cool. And if you compare it to Dragonflight's storyline, I'll tell you right now, those orcs and that Iron Horde would have beat the freaking ever-living shit out of the current dragon aspects, because they're willing to do what it takes to win. They're willing to take their axe and bury it in anybody's back, if that's what it's going to take. The dragon aspects would be like, oh, but we corrupted the eggs. We're bad people. I don't know if I can use my full power. We're going to have to hold back a little bit. Oh, I'm dead now. Oh, God, what am I going to do?
Characters being unashamedly themselves. And that is a part of why people really loved that leveling campaign.
Having a pocket
and it's not just those big final last stand moments, right, that show the character behind our heroes. Take the Isle of Thunder, where Taran Zu was gravely wounded, but stepped up to stop Jaina and Lorthamar from fighting. Runas the Shamed, the Wither Nightfallen, who fought against his addiction to help us out right till his dying breath.
He was badass.
In Dragonflight, Tyvan, the Bakar, who is struggling with and finding his purpose. And even he has a moment of dogged determination where he finds his place in the tribe and valiantly does his part. The same happens to our major characters too, like Varian's speech at the end of the Siege of Orgrimmar. The Horde had failed to uphold honor. He's willing to go for peace.
You guys notice a lot of his examples are from WoD? I'm telling you guys.
Clear that if the Horde fails to uphold honor, he will end them. He showed restraint. He respected their actions, but he still drew a line in the sand, and that felt like it had teeth. Or when Garrosh, right before his very rapid descent into madness, took absolutely no shit from Overlord Cromgar, right? Cromgar had bombed civilians to win a battle for the Horde in Stone Talon, so Garrosh threw him off a cliff for being dishonorable.
Missa Pandaria,
that was Pandaria. In Warcraft.
Missa Pandaria, WoD, like those, the whole Garrosh storyline was hardcore and badass. He literally called Sylvanas a bitch in one of the cutscenes. Imagine that today. I mean, I think if Garrosh called Alexstrasza a bitch, she probably would just, turn into some kind of aspect form like a bunny and hop away. She wouldn't know what to do. Her code would break. She wouldn't know how to handle it. But back then, shit, that was normal. And that was the Warcraft. That was World of Warcraft back then. That was what we played for. We played for him to call. We played the Karen Bloodhoof. I mean, he's literally showing on the screen right now the fight between the two of them. A blooded, a poisoned blade going into Karen. Come on, man. Come on.
3 that displays his courage and bravery is right when Thrall is, of course, meeting Karen. The last of the Tauren are under attack from the Centaur, and so Thrall pledges to help. And that forged a bond between those races that's gone unbroken ever since. Forever bros, with Karn later willing to die to Garrosh to defend the honor of the Horde that he and Thrall built together. And on the Horde, even Nazgrim, he died a villain following Garrosh's orders, but he did so because he believed in what the Horde could be.
Exactly. He was following orders, and he believed that he must follow the orders. He was not going to be he didn't want to betray. He believed in honor and dying with honor. And that's what he did. And that's a badass character.
And there's a through line here. More than anything, Warcraft is about celebrating heroism and determination in every form that it takes. It's an honest-to-God power fantasy. Everyone kind of wants a hill to die on, in a way. Everyone wants to love a person or a people or an idea and do whatever it takes. The real world, of course, is full of nuance, of mitigating factors to heroism. It's complicated, it's frustrating, it's upsetting, because there's always a but to the greatness.
One
World of
man's
Warcraft's
heroes, another man's
characters
villain.
were always larger than life, and even they did encounter a but to their greatness, like Illidan did on every step of his journey, even if they, of course, fell on the way a few times, like Grom, or even if it takes them time to push through their own doubts, like with Varian. They would always push through and make that final stand for what they truly believed in. They would always be someone you could stand behind. When you see Gen's nod to Varian as he let go of his hand, the sadness is there, but it's overpowered by respect. Even Garrosh was beloved despite his fall because he was a strong being of unbending principle. He was our enemy, but people did find him to be a compelling enemy because he was so goddamn devoted to his vision of the Horde, and he absolutely would fight and die to, keep them free, to do his thing. Remember his last hurrah in Shadowlands? It was one of the few things in that expansion that just about everyone liked.
This was probably the coolest moment in all of Shadowlands. Garrosh going out fucking exploding.
Defiant till the end. Compare those to the heroes of Dragonflight. Nosdormu has spent the expansion in a clear allegory for depression and malaise, and when he finally escapes, it's not by finding his courage, it's not by taking a mighty stand, it's subtle. Chromie makes a choice that's not super easy to follow as to why it helps. Nosdormu quietly thanks her, his mind then is changed by this action, but then it's delivered in the 10.1.7 patch through a quest where Eternus and him discuss the compassionate nature of wanting to change the timeline and why that is sometimes okay. And here there's unclear logic and unclear repercussions, where Nosdormu finally breaks free, right? He breaks free of this burden through the help of his friends in this quest in a contemplative moment.
World of Friendcraft.
But it's not like this really comes from within him.
Look, how are these the same game? This literally looks like a Pixar movie. Look at the little whelpling fly. So cute, flying behind the little wall appearing. And then we just saw a scene where Garrosh was walking down an exploding bridge after taking the heart of a fucking old god and throwing it into a pot, causing a complete corruption of the zone. How are those the same game? They're not. They're made by they're a game that's just made by two different groups of people, and with two different visions for what the game could be. Yeah, that's freaking adorable.
There's no showdown where he faces
Garrosh would have ripped this little thing's head off and eaten it, drank its fucking blood from its neck.
his mirror, Morzond, in maybe a metaphorical battle. There's no confrontation. Maybe he doesn't accept Morzond. Maybe that's what he has to do to get past this. But there's no confrontation. There's just this very subtle change. And we can all talk about maybe the realism that. You could also talk about how this is technically his first step into becoming an infinite, and there's every chance that Eternus and Chromie together opening up Nosdormu's possibilities will lead to him in the future making whatever the choices that turns him into Morzond. But fundamentally, in-game, it was all kind of mid, and it wasn't exciting.
No,
and ultimately,
hell no, it wasn't exciting.
This is a fictional universe. Sometimes we go to our fictional universes because we want something that is larger than life.
Yeah.
Alexstrasza, then.
Yeah, if I wanted to talk about my feel, I could go to a freaking diversity, equity, inclusion meeting at my job, okay? I want to go into my fantasy game and just have the simple, just grunty force of sword and shield. Big, hairy, sweaty men. We've said it before. It's just, that's all I want. That's all I want. I don't want soft skins. I don't want any of that. I want to see hardcore gameplay, determined people doing crazy things to achieve their goals, and just badass heroic moments.
She reconciles with her old friend Virinoth in a mostly
Alexstrasza's hot, though.
Off-screen conversation by admitting she was wrong. When she's faced with the issue of the treatment of the Draconoids in Valdrakken, she's forced to admit that she's wrong, under the threat of the terrorism. And that's the right thing to do. But no heroic moments happen.
No.
We don't get to really see Alexstrasza shine through action. We get to find out that she's more wise now through some text. And again, I would say, We have to remember this is a
Yeah,
game.
exactly.
Rathian and
Exactly,
Sibelian, two
Deandra.
hard-headed, stubborn assholes, bring their emotional turmoil to a close by admitting they were wrong, to want to be Aspect in the first place. Abyssian is given the spot as Aspect not because he won it through any determination or, action, but because he was the most emotionally stable of the three. And
Yeah.
again, you can see there's some realistic stuff going on
Right,
here.
right. Look how they elected the Black Dragon aspect. Not like the guy who was the strongest, the guy who sacrificed the most, the guy who was willing to do what it took to get his aspects, his people to the top. No, we elected, Ebonhorn because he was the most emotionally stable. If that's not a sign of what Warcraft has become, I don't know what is. And the thing is, I like Ebonhorn as a character, but it would have been so much cooler if we saw him in some kind of epic, final showdown where he shows up at the end of the Sakureth fight, bites Sakureth's head and fucking rips it off in dragon form or something. That would have been so much cooler. That would have been like his christening, like his moment of like, oh, he just freed the Black Dragon flight and now he's the fucking Black Dragon. But no, we got a conversation here with our fem dragons, and we're all talking about our feelings, and we're like, you know what? Ebonhorn has the best feelings, so we're gonna make him the leader.
But then again, the way that it all happened in
He
game
was the right choice.
very boring.
I just wish he had had his heroic epic moment and not just an emotional, talk through about it.
And then Malfurion, the most important druid
like
of all
Ebonhorn as a
time,
character.
who apparently doesn't even have a role to play in the Emerald Dream Patch because he's, quote, holding down the fort in Ardenweald. That's no way to treat your heroes, Blizzard.
You guys remember when Malfurion took out an entire encampment of Horde that were they were transporting some cargo, and he literally like ripped the Horde guards apart, took one of them into the ground, like vine wrapped one of them and pulled him into the ground, and then choke slammed a fucking troll. Yeah. That guy's a little bit different than what's going on here, and that was probably the last, badass kind of moment that we've seen. What was that? Was that Battle for Azeroth? Yeah, that was a cool moment.
Like Maiev, like our aspects, these are stories about how our heroes are being proven wrong and changing for the better.
You don't remember the cinematic
and in some
title?
cases,
Great.
there are compelling emotional changes and decent, well thought out character arcs, but
different Malfurion,
not
though,
the power fantasy that WoW was built on. People, in large, do not find Dragonflight to be exciting. No. We want heroes. We want that dogged determination. We want characters pushed to the brink and their true courage being tested. We need characters to be willing to plant their flag in the ground and say, no, you move, I won't. We don't even need sacrifices. We just need someone to stare into the eye of an unquestioned enemy and roar that battle cry. And it's funny then that Veranoth is actually becoming the closest thing to a hero that we have in Dragonflight, because she is the one so far with unyielding principle who is willing to stand by that whatever the cost. It's both why she rebelled against Alexstrasza in the first place and why she later turns on Farak. That's a goddamn heroic character. Yeah. This has been an issue for years, though, starting in Legion with Tyrion's death feeling very arbitrary, continuing into Battle for Azeroth with Sylvanas' motivations being unclear and ultimately villainous, and then in Shadowlands with Tyrande being told revenge is bad in a game that is always saying, hey, defeating your enemies is the first step to healing, and again with Bolvar spending more time being lambasted.
Revenge is not bad. Revenge is the reason I freaking played Legion. When I witnessed Varian, who was one of my favorite characters in the game, get blown up by alternate universe Gul'dan, the first thing, I swear, when I watched the cinematic, the first thing I said was, I am going to gear the fuck out and I'm going to kill that freaking bitch. I'm going to get Gul'dan. I'm going to freaking kill him. I'm going to avenge Varian's death. That was my motivation for a long time. And as it should be. Revenge is okay. It's a fantasy game. We don't need fucking moral fortitudes in here, okay? We just want to, let me pick up my sword and let me swing it at my enemies. That's what I want. And yeah, the return of Metzen, as you were saying, bringing that shit back. Yeah, Shadow, you're right. You're right. That's what we're hoping for. We're hoping the return of Metzen. Metzen has that side to him where he likes the old, the old ways. Blood and Thunder, Loktar Ogar, that kind of shit. That's what we're hoping Metzen brings back.
for not seeing his daughter than commended for his years carrying an immense
What was
burden
that?
and being
I don't know.
humongously underutilized as a character in that expansion. Again, showing a lack of interest in even having the Lich King play a role. I mean, with Tyrande, I get the message. I personally do believe in renewal over vengeance. But the way to tell that in Warcraft is to give her that amazing, epic, determined moment. And then to have her rapidly feel empty afterwards. To realize, after she achieves her goal, that her anger was always a mask for that deep loss. It's so much more powerful if that is motivated by character action and a character realizing their own actions rather than God turning off the lights, which is what happened.
Got a tear.
It's time for Warcraft to start celebrating its heroes again, because that is what Warcraft is about, and that is why people loved it. Contemplation, reflection, and change are fine. They're in fact more than fine.
By the way, the grittiness of the voice acting in this scene, like the freaking screams and everything that came out of Varian, oh my god.
They're excellent.
Tickled my taint.
They need to be backed up and led with some good old determined action. An epic speech and a charge into battle certainly wouldn't hurt either. And there we have it. Other than those glimmers with Saurfang, or maybe the very last roar of Garrosh, or even a little bit of, Anduin and his ghost dads. Those are the little glimmers. Yeah. That kind of classic Warcraft heroism that just bonds everyone together because it's so archetypically great and speaks to, all people. We just haven't had that.
No, we haven't.
We've had stuff that it's been good, but it's also been boring. Warcraft shouldn't be boring. So I suppose then, do you agree?
IRL
what
is boring.
Your favorite inspiring Warcraft moment? And actually, while you're here, what do you think is the worst breakdown of a hero in WoW that you've seen? Mull over it, let us know, and I'll see you the next time.
Good video. Good video, and it honestly brings up a lot of the issues that we're hoping Metzen fixes. Right? I think, like, we talk about core gameplay and everything else, and Mythic Plus issues and stuff like that, but the truth is, if the storytelling's good, if the epic moments are there, it just makes everything so much better. Because at its core, I still think World of Warcraft, like, to play the game is still pretty fun. Like, there's still cool things about it. There's still things I like to do. I always want to see the new raid. I want to keep gearing out. I want to keep getting bigger, better things. But there's less motivation to do it when there's not a good story underlying the entire thing that, like, I feel like I'm pushing towards the end of. And we need that story. We need Metzen. We need Swords and Shields. Look, Tara Gar Brothers. That's what we need.